I still remember the smell of fresh-cut roses on the tables, the crystal chandeliers casting soft golden light across the ballroom, the sound of champagne glasses clinking. The night of my grandson's award ceremony should have been the proudest moment of his life, but I watched it turn into something else entirely. My name is Maeve. I am 63 years old. I have lived long enough to know that silence is not always golden. Sometimes, silence is the very thing that lets evil grow roots. Let me take you back to where this story begins. My grandson, Daniel, was always different from other kids. When other boys were outside playing baseball, Daniel was in his room, sketching designs on graph paper. When other teenagers were chasing girls and sneaking beers, Daniel was building his first computer from spare parts he found at the junkyard. I raised him myself after his mother, my daughter, passed away when he was only 7. Cancer took her fast. One day she was laughing in my kitchen, helping me make apple pie. 3 months later, I was holding her hand as she took her last breath. His father disappeared shortly after that. Said he could not handle the grief. I think he could not handle the responsibility. Either way, he left, and I became everything to Daniel. Mother, father, grandmother, friend. We did not have much money. I worked as a secretary at a law firm for 32 years. I clipped coupons. I bought clothes from thrift stores. I drove the same old Buick for 15 years until it finally gave up on me. But I made sure Daniel had what he needed: books, a decent computer, a quiet place to dream. And dream he did. Daniel graduated top of his class in high school. He got a scholarship to MIT, full ride. When I saw that acceptance letter, I cried so hard I could not breathe. My daughter would have been so proud. He studied computer engineering. Then he went on to get his master's degree. By the time he was 25, he was working at one of the biggest tech companies in Boston, Harrington Technologies. You have probably heard of them. They make software for hospitals, for banks, for government agencies, billions of dollars in contracts. Their CEO, Victor Harrington, was always on the news, always on magazine covers. Forbes called him a visionary. Time called him a genius. I called him something else, but I will get to that. Daniel started at Harrington Technologies as a junior developer. Entry level. He worked in a small cubicle on the 4th floor, surrounded by people who had been there for years and had stopped caring about anything except their paychecks. But Daniel cared. He stayed late. He came in early. He brought his laptop home on weekends and worked on projects that nobody asked him to work on. I used to tell him, "Daniel, you are going to burn yourself out. You need to rest. You need to have a life." He would just smile and say, "Grandma, I am doing what I love. This is my life." Within 2 years, Daniel had created something extraordinary: a new security system for medical records, something that would protect patient information in ways that had never been done before. He called it Safe Shield. He showed it to his supervisor. His supervisor showed it to the department head. The department head showed it to Victor Harrington himself. And that is when everything changed. Victor Harrington took one look at Safe Shield and saw dollar signs. He saw contracts with every hospital in America. He saw his face on more magazine covers. He saw legacy, but he did not see Daniel. Or rather, he saw Daniel and decided to erase him. The first sign of trouble came when Daniel was moved to a new team. He was excited at first. He thought it was a promotion, but then he noticed that he was no longer working on Safe Shield. Someone else was. A whole team of people, actually. Senior developers, people with fancy titles and corner offices. Daniel went to his supervisor to ask about it. His supervisor said it was above his pay grade. Daniel went to the department head. The department head said the same thing. Finally, Daniel requested a meeting with Victor Harrington himself. He got 5 minutes. Victor Harrington sat behind a desk the size of my kitchen table in an office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Boston skyline. He barely looked up when Daniel walked in. "Daniel, right?" the CEO said, glancing at his computer screen. "The junior developer." Daniel explained everything. He had created Safe Shield. He had the original files. He had the documentation. He had worked on it for 18 months, on his own time, with his own ideas. Victor Harrington smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the kind of smile a wolf gives a rabbit. "Son," he said, "anything you create while working at this company belongs to this company. It is in your contract." Page 47, paragraph 3. You should read the fine print next time. Daniel tried to argue. He tried to explain that he had created SafeShield before the company ever knew about it, that he had shown it willingly, expecting credit, expecting to be part of the team that developed it further. Victor Harrington stood up. The meeting was over. "I appreciate your enthusiasm," he said, "but you are young. You do not understand how business works. Let the adults handle this. Go back to your desk and do what you are paid to do." Daniel came home that night looking like someone had died. He sat at my kitchen table, the same table where his mother used to sit, and he told me everything. I wanted to march into that office myself and give Victor Harrington a piece of my mind, but Daniel begged me not to. He said he would figure it out. He said he would find another way. So I waited. And I watched. The months went by. SafeShield was developed further by Harrington Technologies. They announced it at a big press conference. Victor Harrington stood on stage, taking credit for what he called his vision for the future of healthcare security. Daniel's name was never mentioned. Not once. I watched that press conference on my laptop, sitting in my living room, and I felt something cold settle in my chest. It was not anger. Not yet. It was something quieter, something patient. I had learned patience during my years at the law firm. I had seen how cases were built, how evidence was gathered, how the truth, no matter how deeply buried, always had a way of coming to light. So, I started digging. I am not a detective. I am not a journalist. I am just an old woman with a computer and a lot of free time. But I know how to read, I know how to search, and I know how to remember. I started with Victor Harrington's past. His public biography said he had founded Harrington Technologies 25 years ago in his garage with nothing but a dream and a $5,000 loan from his father. But the more I dug, the more cracks I found in that story. I found old news articles from the 90s. I found court records. I found the name Marcus Webb. Marcus Webb had been Victor Harrington's business partner. They had started the company together. But 2 years in, Marcus Webb had died in a car accident. Single vehicle, late at night, no witnesses. Victor Harrington inherited everything: the company, the patents, the future. The official story was that Marcus Webb had been drinking, but I found an interview with his widow buried in a small newspaper from Springfield. She said her husband never drank. She said he had been planning to leave the company. She said Victor Harrington had been threatening him for months. The case was never investigated properly. Victor Harrington had friends in high places. Money has a way of making questions disappear. I kept digging. I found former employees, people who had left Harrington Technologies under mysterious circumstances, people who had created things, invented things, only to watch Victor Harrington take credit and push them out. There was a pattern, a clear, undeniable pattern. Victor Harrington was not a genius. He was a thief, a predator. He found talented people, used them, and discarded them. And if anyone tried to fight back, he destroyed them. I gathered everything: documents, interviews, records. I put it all in a folder on my computer. I printed copies and kept them in a safe deposit box at my bank. And I waited. I was not sure what I was waiting for. Maybe I was waiting for Daniel to fight back himself. Maybe I was waiting for someone else to expose Victor Harrington. Maybe I was just waiting for the right moment. That moment came on a cold evening in November. Harrington Technologies was hosting its annual Innovation Awards, a fancy gala at the Copley Plaza Hotel. Black tie, champagne. All the important people in Boston tech would be there, and Daniel was being given an award. Not for SafeShield, of course, for something smaller. A minor improvement to an existing system, a consolation prize, a pat on the head. But Victor Harrington had made a big deal about it. He personally called Daniel into his office and told him he was being recognized. He said Daniel was a valued member of the team. He said this was just the beginning. Daniel was skeptical. But he was also hopeful. That was his nature. No matter how many times the world knocked him down, he always got back up with hope in his eyes. He asked me to come to the gala. He said he wanted me there. He said it would mean everything to him. So I went. I put on my best dress, the navy blue one I had bought for my daughter's funeral, and never worn again. I had my hair done at a salon for the first time in years. I even put on lipstick. The ballroom was magnificent. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, roses everywhere, a string quartet playing softly in the corner, hundreds of people in tuxedos and gowns, laughing, networking, pretending to care about each other. I sat at a table near the back with some of the other employees' family members. Daniel was up front, at a table with his coworkers. He looked so handsome in his suit, so nervous, so proud. The awards ceremony began after dinner. Victor Harrington took the stage. He was tall, silver-haired, with the kind of practiced smile that made you want to trust him, even when your gut told you not to. He gave a speech about innovation, about vision, about the future of technology. He talked about SafeShield, of course. He called it his proudest achievement, his legacy. I watched Daniel's face from across the room. I saw him flinch. I saw his jaw tighten, but he stayed silent. He always stayed silent. Then came the individual awards. Victor Harrington called up employee after employee, shaking hands, posing for photos, pretending to know their names. Finally, he called Daniel. "And now," Victor Harrington said, "I would like to recognize one of our newest team members, a young man who has shown great promise." Daniel stood up. He walked to the stage. The applause was polite but sparse. Victor Harrington put his arm around Daniel's shoulder. It looked friendly, fatherly even. But I saw Daniel stiffen. I saw his discomfort. "Daniel here," Victor Harrington said, "represents the future of this company. Young, eager, ready to learn from those of us who have been doing this a little longer." The audience chuckled. Victor Harrington continued, "He is receiving this award for his contributions to our back-end optimization project. Small work, but important work. We all have to start somewhere, right?" More chuckles. I gripped the edge of the table. My knuckles went white. "And Daniel," Victor Harrington said, turning to look at my grandson, "I want you to know something. I have been watching you. I see potential in you. But potential is not achievement. You have a long way to go before you can sit at the big table with the rest of us. So take this award, be grateful, and remember who gave you this opportunity." He patted Daniel on the shoulder. It was not a pat of encouragement. It was a pat of ownership, a reminder of who held the power. The audience applauded. But Daniel did not take the award. He did not smile. He did not say thank you. He looked at Victor Harrington with something I had never seen in his eyes before. It was not anger. It was disappointment. Deep, profound disappointment. "Mr. Harrington," Daniel said, his voice steady but quiet, "I created SafeShield." The room went silent. Victor Harrington laughed. It was a loud, dismissive laugh. "Son, we have been over this. You contributed some early ideas, sure, but SafeShield was a team effort. My team. I have the original files," Daniel said. "I have documentation proving I created the core algorithm. I have timestamps." Victor Harrington's smile disappeared. His eyes went cold. "Daniel," he said, his voice low but amplified by the microphone, "I am going to give you some advice. You are young. You are emotional. You are embarrassing yourself in front of some very important people. Take the award, sit down, and we will forget this ever happened." Daniel shook his head. "No." Victor Harrington leaned closer to the microphone. "Then, let me be clear. You are nothing. You are a nobody from nowhere. You work in a cubicle. You have no connections, no power, no influence. The only reason you are standing on this stage is because I allowed it. I can destroy your career with one phone call. So sit down, shut up, and be grateful for what you have." The room was frozen. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. I saw Daniel's face. I saw the blood drain from his cheeks. I saw his hands tremble at his sides. I saw the exact moment his hope died. And something inside me snapped. I stood up from my table. My chair scraped loudly against the marble floor. Victor Harrington looked in my direction, annoyed. Security was already moving toward me. But I was not there to cause a scene. I was there to tell the truth. I walked toward the stage. My heels clicked with every step. The room watched in confused silence. "Excuse me, ma'am," a security guard said, reaching for my arm. I looked at him. "I am his grandmother," I said, "and I have something to say." Something in my voice made him hesitate. He looked at Victor Harrington, waiting for instructions. Victor Harrington smiled. That wolf smile again. "By all means," he said, gesturing magnanimously. "Let the old woman speak. This should be entertaining." He handed me the microphone. I took it. My hand was steady. My heart was calm. I looked out at the audience, at all those wealthy, powerful, important people, at their expensive clothes and their champagne glasses and their carefully neutral expressions. Then I looked at Victor Harrington. "You called my grandson a nobody," I said. "You said he was nothing. But let me tell you who he really is. He is the boy who taught himself to code at 12 years old. He is the young man who worked 2 jobs to help me pay our bills while he was in high school. He is the grandson who held my hand at his mother's funeral and promised me he would make her proud." My voice cracked, but I kept going. "He created Safe Shield, not your team, him. I have seen the original files. I have seen the documentation. I know the truth." Victor Harrington laughed. "This is absurd. Security, please escort this woman out." But I was not finished. "I also know about Marcus Webb," I said. The laughter stopped. Victor Harrington's face went pale. "I know that he was your partner. I know that he created most of the original technology that built this company. I know that he died in a car accident that was never properly investigated. I know that his widow believes you had something to do with it." Victor Harrington grabbed for the microphone, but I stepped back. "I know about Sarah Chen," I continued, "the engineer who created your first cybersecurity system. You fired her and took credit for her work. She tried to sue you, but you buried her in legal fees until she gave up." The audience was murmuring now. People were pulling out their phones, recording. "I know about David Martinez, about Lisa Yamamoto, about at least a dozen other employees whose ideas you stole and whose careers you destroyed." Victor Harrington was shouting now, "Turn off her microphone! Get her off the stage!" But nobody moved. They were all watching, waiting. I looked at my grandson. He was standing there, frozen, tears streaming down his face. "Daniel," I said, "your mother would be so proud of you. You are not a nobody. You are everything." Then I looked back at Victor Harrington. "And you," I said. "You are a thief, a bully, and a fraud. I have sent copies of everything I found to 3 different journalists tonight. By tomorrow morning, the whole world will know who you really are." Victor Harrington lunged at me. Security guards grabbed him. The room erupted into chaos. I set the microphone down gently on the podium. Then I walked off the stage, took my grandson's hand, and led him out of the ballroom. We did not speak until we were outside, standing on the cold sidewalk, our breath visible in the night air. "Grandma," Daniel finally said. His voice was shaking. "How did you know all that?" I smiled. "I had 32 years to learn how lawyers think, and I have had 3 years to watch Victor Harrington hurt you. But why tonight? Why like this?" I looked at him. "Because silence is what lets people like him keep hurting people like you. Because your mother taught me that the truth is always worth fighting for. And because nobody calls my grandson a nobody and gets away with it." Daniel hugged me. He held me so tight I could barely breathe. And for the first time in years, I felt like I had done something that mattered. The story broke the next morning. Then it was picked up by national news, then international. Victor Harrington tried to deny everything. He hired lawyers. He gave press conferences. He called me a senile old woman with a grudge. But the evidence was too strong. The former employees came forward, one after another. Marcus Webb's widow gave an interview. Documents were leaked from inside the company. Within 3 months, Victor Harrington resigned from Harrington Technologies. Within 6 months, he was under investigation by the FBI. Within a year, he was in prison for fraud, embezzlement, and obstruction of justice. They never charged him for Marcus Webb's death. There was not enough evidence. But his widow called me personally to thank me. She said she had been waiting 25 years for someone to tell the truth. Daniel was offered his job back at Harrington Technologies, with full credit for SafeShield and a significant promotion. He turned it down. Instead, he started his own company, small at first. Just him and 2 friends from MIT, working out of a rented office in Cambridge. They named it Webb Technologies, in honor of Marcus. Today, 3 years later, Webb Technologies has 40 employees and contracts with hospitals across the country. Daniel is the CEO. He is on magazine covers now. They call him an innovator, a visionary. But I know who he really is. He is the boy who built computers from junkyard parts. He is the young man who never gave up, no matter how many times the world tried to break him. He is my grandson. Some people have asked me if I regret what I did that night. If I worry that I embarrassed Daniel in front of all those important people. If I think I went too far. I tell them no. I tell them that sometimes silence is not an option. Sometimes the only way to stop a bully is to stand up and speak the truth, no matter how powerful they are, no matter how small you feel. I tell them that love is not just about protecting someone from pain, it is about fighting for them when they cannot fight for themselves. And I tell them that I am 63 years old. I have buried my daughter. I have raised my grandson. I have watched good people suffer while bad people prospered. But that night, in that ballroom, I chose to live in truth. I chose to live with love. And I would do it all over again.